You're listening to the Grieving Mamas Club podcast, a space for moms who are on the wild ride of motherhood while navigating their grief journey.
We're Cara and Rashida. Between the two of us, we're motherless moms of 4 toddlers and an angel baby. Together, we're going to feel our feels, but also remind you that there's joy on the journey too. Let's dig in. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6. We're doing it. We're moving along. And this week, I'm really pumped. I have a whole lot of feels about the guest this week. This person has known me for a very long time. We were college roommates. We slept like our heads right next to each other. And so I am overwhelmingly excited to have her on this podcast and be a part of this thing that Cara and I are creating, though it does break my heart to have watched her. I'm already probably going to start crying. To have watched her have to go through this grief journey. But I am so excited to get to walk beside her in this life. So excited to welcome one of my very best friends, Dr. Sauer Rosenow. And she is going to talk to us about losing a spouse. Megan lost her husband, Nick. She was 29 and he was 30. They had just had a baby. There was a lot going on. So welcome to the show, Meg. I'm going to do my best not to cry. I can already feel my eyes getting crazy.
There's like no way I won't cry.
Yes. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, happy to have you. I am happy to be here. I've been dying to come on ever since Rashida and you, Cara, started this thing. And like I said before you guys were recording, I'm just so proud of her and you and what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
It's
so wish we weren't meeting on these terms, but
I know. I feel like we get to talk to, like last week, our episode with Caitlin afterwards. Here was like, I want to be best friends with her. I feel like we get to have these cool conversations, but they're like rooted in grief, which makes them sad. But then because they're rooted in grief, you almost you hit the friendship button real fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. We get it.
An accelerated friendship.
Yeah, it is like an accelerated friendship when you come on this podcast. So we are so excited to have you, Meg.
Yay.
Meg, I'm going to let you get into it, but I will set you up. In 2019, on October 8th, I remember this because it was the day after my birthday. And I actually thought you were originally calling to say happy birthday again. Your mom called me. I was like, what is happening?
It was your 30th too.
Yes, it was. So, well, Cara had different memories of my 30th.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all.
That 2019 month was rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, you lost Nick, your husband, who you had been with since college. So where do you want to start? How do you want to dive in?
I mean, I guess I can just tell the story from my standpoint. So Nick and I met in 2010 actually. So we had almost been together for 10 years and grew up together, basically through college.
Yeah, you did.
We got married in 2016. So we had been married for 3 years, a little over 3 years. And then we actually had our son, Jack, in 2019, January 2019. So he was 9 months old at the time of this. And, on top of everything, I was a 3rd year OBGYN resident. So, in the trenches of residency. I was actually on nights when it happened. So I came home and he had passed away in his sleep. And so, I just got off a night shift. And my sister-in-law actually was the one who nannied for us. So she, luckily and unluckily, she was at the house. So someone was there with me. But then, of course, she went through the trauma as well, which was very difficult. And so long story short, like, we don't know for sure what happened, but think that it was like just a cardiac in nature. I don't know if you like want to put this stuff like in your podcast, but just for like your knowledge.
Yeah.
I think that he just had
We want to know.
a weird arrhythmia. Something happened because his autopsy was, normal, and he didn't have any health problems or family history of anything weird. So I ended up being awake because I had just got off a night shift. So I'd been, asleep all night, and then I had been awake all night, and then I stayed awake all day. And then I ended up being awake for like 36 hours or something crazy. And so I took a month off of residency, and my program was absolutely incredible. Like, they immediately, everyone, like, I called my program director that morning and told him what was happening. He's like, is there someone with you? Like, I will drive. He was like going to drive to be at my house with me. And they like immediately found someone to like, my fellow classmates like split up the rest of the month because we're at the beginning of the month. So I'd barely done like any of my nights for that month. And they're like, take as much time as you need. I ended up only taking 4 weeks because there are rules for how much time off you can take in residency. So that's why I only took a month off, but they were very gracious, and they were like, when you come back, you can leave early, you can come late, you can do whatever you need. So I ended up going back like on November 1st. So it ended up being like 4 weeks that I took off, and I went back on November 1st.
Oh my gosh.
But actually, that was one of the best things that I could have done, is like going back to work actually like really, really helped because it kept me busy. I was back to doing what I love. I was with my friends. It actually was like really healing for me, kind of.
Meg, take us through, I guess, some of your initial like feelings. Like, you found Nick. Like, what take us through that. Like, that is, I don't know how you came back from that. Like,
No.
Yeah, so there's a couple unique things about like my situation. Everyone has unique things with their loss, but one unique thing that I had was, that I found him. So that in itself was very traumatizing, and was actually very traumatizing for my sister-in-law too. And she actually did not come back to my house for, oh my gosh, I don't even know, months. She continued to watch Jack whenever I went back to work, but she would watch him at her house. And so she lived in Illinois. I was in St. Louis because I did my residency at SLU. And so she would meet me at the hospital for the next year and a half, almost 2 years. She met me at the hospital every morning, and I would, I'd throw Jack in the car in his pajamas, put him in her car, and then I had to be there at, the ass crack of dawn because I'm a resident, and she would meet me every day. But she did eventually come back to the house, but it was very like traumatizing for her to be there. So obviously I'm in the medical field, so like when I found him, like, I knew right off the bat, like, immediately that he was gone, but it hadn't really so I didn't even start doing CPR or anything because I just knew it, based on what I was seeing.
You could just tell.
And so, yes. And so I yelled for Olivia, to come into the room. And so she came in, and I'm like, call 911. And she called, and then I was like, well, they're gonna want me to do it. So then I did CPR until they came, and then they were in there for a long time, but I knew Olivia didn't. but I knew. So I did like kind of say, I don't know what specific words I said, but I was like, he's gone. But she's like, they're gonna, they're doing their best. I don't know exactly what she said, but like, I think that she still had hope.
Sure.
And so then, of course, it's all of the, so they did come out before anyone else got there. They did come out and like tell me that they never, got any sort of rhythm or anything on him. But in the meantime, like, I had started making the phone calls, and then of course Jack had been sleeping, and so Jack woke up. So then Olivia had to get Jack and kind of tend to him. And so, I like called his dad, Nick's dad, and told him that we found him unresponsive. I didn't tell anyone, my suspicions. I just told them that they needed to come right away. I called my mom.
You were being a doctor, like,
Yeah.
we're like, I applaud, like, and these are details I didn't know. Like, I came into the story a couple hours later. I don't know how you held it together. Like, I don't, like, I would not.
The shock, like the initial shock, like you just go into like some sort of like survival mode drive, and it's just like, this checklist of what do I need to do? I need to make sure my job is covered. I need to make sure the people that need to know or need to be here get here. It's just the emotions don't hit yet. The emotions come later. And there were, not that there weren't emotions. Like,
No,
I
it makes
lost
sense.
it when they came. I lost it whenever they came out and, said it. And I had, done a lot of yelling and crying when I initially found him. But then, there's a mixture of like shock and not really like everything.
Well, and especially with your background, you probably have a lot more experience you obviously have a lot more experience with death and how to broach that subject with people in general. So you just can, I think maybe like, yes, I totally agree. It's like you go into survival mode. And then also you are able to tap into, like, from your professional side, like, okay, you can kind of like, I think it's almost like you like disassociate a little bit, like you just like go into,
like, get the things done.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
At what point, so Jack wakes up, like, I don't even, I could guess at what point did it all hit you? Like, at what point were you like, holy, this is my life now?
I feel like it wasn't until at least later that night, but like definitely the next day. So I had said, like, I called Nick's dad, told him, I called my mom, and I told her that, telling both of them that like he was unresponsive, they should come to the house. I actually told my mom, I was like, Mom, you need to go pick John up and bring him to my house because I didn't want him driving. Complicate things, Nick's brother lived in Kansas City at the time.
Oh, yeah.
His mom was flying back from a trip that morning, back from like they do like a girls trip. She was like with her sisters, or at least one of her sisters, in South Carolina, I think. And so she actually hadn't even gotten on the plane yet, but we didn't want to tell her before she got on the plane. It's like, imagine how like god awful that would be. So Olivia and John went to pick her, or I think Olivia went. I'm pretty sure she went. They picked her up from the airport, and that's the, they told her when they picked her up from the airport. So she gets back from this trip and like finds out that it's like that. And at that point, like, everyone knew that he was gone. So like, she wasn't hearing that he was found unresponsive. She was hearing that her son was gone. And so then everyone like starts coming. Like my sister came, like my mom and dad both came. They came with Nick's dad, Nick's brother, and his girlfriend at the time. They're married now, like got on the road. Like every, the immediate family all came. And so then at some point, like I put my mom in charge of telling my friends because I didn't want to be the one. I just couldn't do it at that time. So I think my mom like texted you, Rashida, and then Rashida kind of took over as like the communicator to everyone else. And so
your sister, so I was getting my hair done as I do. And your mom sent like a Facebook group message to all of our college friends. So there's a group of 5 of us that were roommates in college and that were really there at the beginning of you and Nick's relationship, right? Like we watched you guys become this couple, and Nick, I feel like Nick holds a funny, like, special place in my heart because I'll be the first to tell you, Nick was an asshole in college.
He was. I always say, like, he was an asshole, but he was our asshole,
Yes. And I think where things changed for me is that Nick knew that getting into med school and being a doctor was your dream. And so he did whatever it took to support you in that dream. So he worked a job he didn't really love. Like he didn't really love where he worked. Yeah. Like he like Meg gets into med school in Kansas City and he's like, all right, I guess I'm moving to Kansas City. Like I feel like that's when I was like, Nick is here for Megan. Like he is here for her dreams. And like Megan wanted to be a doctor from the moment I knew her. And so yeah, but going back to, so we get your mom sends the Facebook thing. And I think Madison ended up texting me, or she sent a text to a couple of us. I can't remember the exact, like, who was all on the text.
Yeah.
And the text is like, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but that Meg found Nick, EMTs have left and he's gone. And I just remember being like, there's no way. Like,
yeah, like
this doesn't happen to us.
None of us.
Too young.
Yes. No, I was just like, no, like baby.
Yeah.
I was like, absolutely not. So I call her. I like walk outside of the hair place. I call her. She tells me that it's true. I immediately break down. I call my husband. Ben's like, are you? No. Like, no. And I actually remember I called, like, I didn't know what to do. And so like I called my best friend from high school, Olivia. And I remember her, like, I was losing my shit, like absolutely losing my shit. And I remember her calmly and nicely, she was like, you got to get it together before you go to see Megan though. Like you can't show up in this.
Yeah.
Like you've got, she's going to need you. Yeah. Like she's going to need you to be like, you got this. Like you need to be stronger for her. And so yeah, I went back in. My hairdresser finished my hair. It was halfway done.
She
was like, she didn't even stop. Like she like, because it was a sew-in, right? So it's like she had to put the rest of the sew-in in, and she was like, "You can come back and style it another day. Go, be with your friend." She's like, "The hair is in there. Like hair is not coming out. Yeah.
You have hair now."
Yeah. She thought it. Like, like she was like crying as she was like getting it in because she's like younger. She's a young woman too, right? And so like, I feel like I can't, and I've obviously been through grief. Like we've talked about this ad nauseum, Meg, but like, I feel like at the age that we are, losing your spouse is almost worse than losing a parent. Like I just like, I remember saying to Ben, like, it's one thing you expect to lose a parent, right? Like, it's not a, like, you're going to lose a parent at some point. And not to say that makes it any better. Cara and I are still left up.
Yeah. But it's like a natural life progression.
Yeah.
And I just, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you can finish your thought.
I was like, and your spouse is the person, like, when you got married, you pictured you and that person old and grandchildren and all of those things, and you got robbed of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, couple things that that made me think of. So, like some other like unique things about losing a spouse are, one, like I kept being like, and now I obviously have worked through these emotions because it was like that hardcore grief in the beginning, but I was just like, no one else's grief could possibly be as bad as mine in this moment because they all have their person to lean on and get through this with. And I just lost my person. So I have no one like to lean on and get through this with. And I was just, it's easy to like compare your grief to other people, but now I see, that's not the case at all. Like, I can't imagine losing either one of my children. Like, I can't imagine like what his parents are still going through. But in that moment, you just feel like your grief is like your loss is the biggest loss out of like anyone. And then also the other thing that is kind of unique is that, like, whereas losing a parent, are unfortunately a lot of other people who have lost parents. So you have other people to kind of like
Totally.
are like
Totally.
talk to and like see how they got through it. But losing a spouse at this young of an age is not, thankfully not a common thing. So there's not a lot of people that you can lean on. Now, unfortunately for me, fortunately and unfortunately, which is like this whole business is, one of my good friends from residency, who she had already graduated, I think. Yes, yeah, she had already graduated. But she had a very similar story to mine. She lost her husband when she was a first year resident, and their daughter was, I think, like a year and a half old.
Oh, wow.
Or something, a year and a half, like 2 years old, something along those lines. And it was a very weirdly similar story. Like, she was working a night shift. She, came home, found her husband. So
That's wild.
I had her to lean on, which was great. But then she also had a newborn baby. And so I felt bad bothering her. So I called her, a couple times whenever I was like really overwhelmed and just like needing to be reassured that this will get better, will get easier. But I didn't want to, bother her too much with calls, which she wouldn't think of it that way. But that is another like unique thing about the whole situation, is there's not as many people who have been through this at our age. So that was kind of hard.
Oh my gosh. I can totally understand why that would be so hard. As you said, it's not common. So it's like at the end of the day, everybody else has someone to go home to.
Yeah.
And you lost that person. You did it. You went home and you still had to, you had to be a parent. You had to do it all on your own.
Yeah.
Truly all on your own. And I mean, you have the support of your friends and your family, of course, who are there to help. Your sister-in-law, Olivia, to help you with Jack, but still.
Yeah. And
like calling somebody on your way home from work. I'm sure when you got off your shift, you were like, no, maybe Nick was probably the first one that you called. And so losing that right off the bat.
And so I'm lucky that like both of our families are around this area. So they're in Illinois and I was in St. Louis, but still like not that, an hour drive for my parents, like very doable. So for the next 2 months, I guess it ended up being like 3 months. I called them my personal babysitters. I had someone stay with me every night. So we basically like had a schedule, like, Nick's mom would usually come on Sunday nights and stay with me. And then it was like one night would be my mom, one night would be my dad, one night it ended up being like 4 weeknights. And then I would the weekends I would go and stay either at my in-laws' house for the weekend or my parents' house for the weekend. So and I had, a couple different friends do it. Like one of my friends from residency, she had her daughter was just a couple months younger than Jack. So she and her husband is also resident. So on like nights that he was on call, she legit would bring her, I guess, like she was like 6 months old at the time, her 6-month-old and her dog. She'd bring the crew over and like we both she had to be up early to like go on with residency the next day. The whole crew would like stay at her house, at my house. And so, I told myself that I kind of set like a New Year's goal. So like after, first of the year, I was going to start staying by myself. And so that's when I did start staying by myself. And then actually, so that was January of 2020. Then, of course, COVID hits, which was awful for everyone.
Yeah.
Especially people going through, feeling alone already.
Yeah.
But then one of my good friends from med school, she finished her pediatric fellowship and then her pediatric residency and then matched into fellowship at Children's. And she told me when she matched, like this was like in March, I think, that she found out she matched. And so I reached out to her and I was like, listen, you don't have to say yes to this by any means, but I have another room, I have a guest room in my house. You can live with, I probably will only be in my house for 1 more year because when I'm done with residency, I'll probably move to Illinois because that's where I'm hoping to get a job. But like, I'm not going to charge you rent. You just have to deal with a toddler and 2 dogs. And she's like, well, I would be bringing my dog. And I was like, all right, toddler and 3 dogs, it's a party. Yeah. And so she lived with me for my chief year of my last year of residency. So she lived with me for a whole year and that was wonderful. It was so nice having someone there. And she was just like beyond, I mean, Jamie is just like the nicest person you'll ever meet.
We love Jamie.
Yes. She's like think of like Patch Adams, like a bubbly pediatrician who just like loves children and is just like as sweet as can be.
Also, she's studying in pediatric infectious diseases.
Yeah. I cup of tea, but no,
not at all.
And so she, living with her during that year was very healing for me, I think, more than she will ever realize.
I think it saved you.
Yes.
Like, I think 100%. from my standpoint, I think because from one standpoint, I was like, why can't I be that to Meg? Like, right? Like, why can't I move in with her and blah, blah, blah. But, I had like a husband and fucking kid. Even I was pregnant. And so like, I'm just like, why can't I? And so I feel like she saved you. Like she gave you a bit of normalcy. Like you guys like kind of fell into, from the outside looking in, fell into a rhythm that was yours. Like between like these two, it could have been a sitcom, quite honestly.
Yes, it could have. I mean, we called it our zoo. We actually were like, for Halloween, we were both zookeepers, me and Jen, and then Jack and the 3 dogs were all animals. Because we called it a zoo, but it really, it was like our beautiful chaos that we had. And she, was great in that her schedule was a little more flexible for me most of the time, except when she was on service. So like she would make dinner and she was, not to diss the husbands out there, but she was a female. So like we both did dishes. We both, like, some get those, but it was was great. It was like totally what I needed that year. But to hit on something that you had said, Rashida, like the pregnancy, that was definitely something that I wanted to talk about, because Rashida found out that she was pregnant with Parker, like right when this happened, basically.
I found out like a couple days after the funeral.
And so one of the nights that you came over just to like hang out with me, you told me, and that was so hard for me. And honestly, it kind of like I don't want to say destroyed, but our friendship really went downhill for a little while, because I had such a hard time handling that. And
I know.
I had two other friends that were, gosh, I'm sorry, I'm a crier, so this is
I'm gonna wait to safe space.
Yes.
Get it out, girl.
I had two other friends that were pregnant at the time, but like I already knew that they were pregnant. I think it was because like I saw someone else's life move forward in a way that mine was not going to do. And not that we were like trying to have another baby by any means, but like I was just like, I don't get to do that. In that moment, I thought I was, not going to get to do that again.
Totally.
And so that was so hard for me. And so it actually made it hard for me to be around Rashida. And so we actually kind of, went through a period of time where we were not in contact, that like we kind of, not that we lost touch, because we were still in the same like group text with our college friends, but I didn't call and text specifically her and hang out with her like I did before. And then COVID hit. So no one's doing anything. And then she had Parker, and she was going through her own struggles. And so we were both like in these grief journeys. And so that actually, that hit our relationship really hard.
Yeah.
And obviously you can tell that we're not in that space anymore.
No.
That was one thing that was really hard for me, was seeing other people's lives move on, or like move forward in a way that mine couldn't at that time. And so I was so obsessed with like time. Like I just wanted someone to tell me how long it was good. I kept saying this too. I kept saying, I just want someone to tell me how long it will hurt this bad. Like if someone could just be like, you are going to hurt this bad for a year, then okay, I can get through that year. Like I know that I can do whatever I need to get through that year. Like that was just, I just wanted someone to tell me that. And it was so hard for me to see people having these big life events. I also was obsessed with hearing stories of people who had lost a spouse, but then found happiness again. And so I, started reading books, and I got into like this Terrible Thanks for Asking podcast.
I love that podcast. Yeah.
Laura McInerney. And I would just skip to like the ones that had spouses, just so I could hear like where they were at now, and that, they found, fell in love again and got married again and had a kid and all this stuff. And so I just became like obsessed with that. And I would listen to these podcasts over and over again. And I would get so upset if I turned on an episode and it was like about someone, losing their job or like that. I was just like, this is ridiculous that like you had an episode on this. And I am not like, it was just the space that I was in.
I know. Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to apologize for like,
it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense
for that.
I was just so stuck on like, my situation is so terrible. Like those
It is.
are nothing compared to what I'm going through. And so that I just, I couldn't stop like listening to things like that.
Yeah. It makes sense, Meg. And like the worst, I once heard a quote, it's like the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah.
And it varies by person, obviously.
And it's all relative. I feel like
Yeah.
one of the things I love about this podcast and this like focus on grief is that it can be more than that. Like it can be more, like it's all relative, right? So like last week we talked about what it's like to grieve a kid's diagnosis. And this week we're talking about the like life altering, heart shattering loss of a spouse. Like I think the more that we have these kinds of conversations, my hope is that more people will understand grief and understand its feeling and be able to work through that in a way that's like, I guess, healthy and beneficial to society.
Yeah. It's be more empathetic. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like being on the outside, like seeing someone, now that I have been through that really hard part and I'm like on the other side of it, I can see that, everyone is going through something. Everyone is grieving something like all the time. And so when people have these losses, no, their loss is not less than mine. It's, it does make you, I'm able to be empathetic now. And I hope that that's something that, maybe my story can help with too. Because I definitely wasn't, I was just so stuck thinking that my situation was the worst one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
I don't know how
terrible. I'm not gonna
You're not Karen's like, well, it did suck. So
yeah.
I know. I
Like,
know.
it sounds pretty bad to me. So
Yeah. No, it's pretty bad. Pretty bad. It makes me feel, I mean, yeah, I could not imagine. Losing my mom was the worst thing ever, and the miscarriage was the worst thing ever. And then my son's diagnosis is still a struggle, but losing my spouse, my God.
And right before you got on, Meg, Kira and I were, I think also two things, two thoughts literally entered my brain at once and both competed to try to get out.
Yeah.
Two things. After you lost Nick, I stopped saying, like, whenever someone would be, like, when Ben would be gone or, like, I had to watch Down by myself, I would always be like, I'm single momming it. And I was like that. I don't do that anymore. I usually say I'm solo parenting. Like that seems less like, not derogatory, but just like there are moms out there doing it. Like I shouldn't complain for the 12 hours I had to be by myself when you did a whole year being like the only solo parent. So I've tried to change my language to say I'm solo parenting.
I'm changing that starting now.
Yes. Because it's single, and it's also like there are moms, like for real single moms out here doing it.
Right.
And I don't get to count myself as one of them when I have a perfectly capable partner who happens to just be like on a business trip, still earning a second income for us.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, right before you got on, Meg, Kara and I were both complaining about our traveling husbands. It's just about, like, it's so hard. Yeah. And it is. Not to say that it's not, but it is obviously very different,
Yeah, it's way different. And I've also, to layer on top of that, ever since experiencing the losses, like I just automatically, and I don't know if Rashida, I think you kind of go here too, and Megan, I don't know if you do, but like do you guys always go to like the immediate negative, like when my husband travels, or even if I'm in a car driving, like what if this is the last time that I'm alive? Oh, what happens to my family? What happens to my husband, my kids? Like, is that is that just me, or
I am terrified that something will happen to me, and Jack, like, because he is through this, he like obviously became like, a lot of kids are mamas boys, little boys are mama's boys anyways, but I was his only, it was just me and him for so long. So I am, yes, terrified that something will happen to me and he will not have either of his biological parents.
Yes.
I mean, spoiler alert, I am remarried.
Yes.
So we're going to get there. Yeah. He would have like who he talks that or says is his dad. And we tell him he's still a little too young, but we tell him all the time, like, you have two daddies, like you have one in heaven, one on earth. But yes, I'm like terrified that something will happen to me.
Gosh, Meg, how did you have, like, so Jack was he was 8 months old.
9 months
10.
old.
Yeah, 9, 10 months old. Yeah. When Nick passed away, you're like holding him at night and you're putting him to bed or something at some point, and maybe you tell him, and obviously he doesn't understand it. And he still doesn't understand it, but like how do you have that conversation? I know how I had the conversation with my 2.5-year-old, but that's way different.
Well, see, it's different because he doesn't remember Nick at all. And so we always we talk about Nick all the time. And we have there's pictures of Nick at, my parents' house and his parents' house. And he has a picture of like him and Nick in his room. And so like if we point to a picture, we'll say like, who is that? And he'll say, that's Daddy. And so he knows, like, looking at pictures of Nick, like, that his name is Daddy, but I haven't had like a legit conversation yet because I haven't had to, because he wasn't old enough to say remember and be like, where's Daddy?
Yeah, right.
So we're like starting to get into the difficult stage just because he now like calls Alex dad, and so we're trying to say like, you have two dads, and so it is a little difficult, but we haven't had to really have this situation of like, well, why isn't that dad here?
Yeah.
Two things again. Always two. Jack also, Cara, for you, Jack is the like spitting image of Nick. Like, Meg was totally just an incubator. Like, I went to the hospital when Jack was born, looked at him and was like, this is Nick's baby. Baby Nick. Yeah.
Like one, I mean, it is like his legit clone.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Like, Jackson Sauer is 1000% a Sauer.
That?
And he acts just like Nick. I mean, he has like Nick's mannerisms, and he's not even here to, like, I don't know where he gets these from because he never saw, him or to where he would remember. So it's crazy. It's literally like a little mini Nick running around.
Which has got to be so like comforting, but also so it's like bittersweet, sad.
Yes. Now,
and I'm sure for his
thankful for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For the yes. Oh yes. And I think another thing that like breaks my heart, and Ben and I talked about this a lot too. So when Meg was pregnant with Jack, very pregnant, I'm talking 38 weeks pregnant, one of our friends got married out of state, and Meg was hell-bent on still being there.
I was 36 weeks, so yes. A little earlier than that. But yes, I still went.
Yes, hell-bent on still being there, hell-bent on wearing her bridesmaid dress.
That puppy barely zipped.
Barely zipped. But Nick and Ben got to spend a lot of time together as we were doing bridesmaid stuff. And Nick was so excited to be a dad. Like, and that is, like, if you'd known Nick in college, that's almost shocking.
That is cup of tea parenting.
No, but he wanted, like, I remember having a conversation with him, like, after Jack was born, and he was like, because at that point, Dom was like, feel like I brought Dom over. Dom might have been, let's see. When Nick passed away, Dom was not quite 2, but close to 2. And I just remember Nick being like, man, I can't wait to play, like, for Jack to be like Dom's age. Like, so that I can play with him and like do stuff and like,
gosh.
He was almost, when he passed away, he was almost.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And so like a part of me, I was and continue to be, heartbroken that he doesn't get to see Jack. This Jack, I love still looking at the video of you guys bringing Jack home. Like all of the cute little photos he would send you while you were working nights of like him and Jack, and like he became such a dad.
Yes.
Like, and I mean that in the like goofiest, funniest, dorky, like he became a dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Well, I had no choice because I worked such terrible hours, and like I worked a straight month of nights, and he like imagine your husband being the lone parent for a whole month. Like,
well,
I
could do it, but it would be
do it,
a struggle.
It's rough. Yeah, like
yeah.
And he did it. He did it. But
because he was you could see it. Like I could feel Nick's like excitement to be a dad. Like it was one of my favorite things about like Nick in the later years is him being so excited to be a dad.
Yeah. And it does make me sad because he was like super excited for like this stage that we're in right now with Jack, because he's 4, he's like playing t-ball, he's like such a person, and he's like so fun, and like that's really what he was super excited for. And so it like breaks my heart that he's not here to see that part that he was so excited about.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I bet it's hard for your in-law, I guess your first set of in-laws, to even see Jack. They're probably just like, oh my gosh, this is little Nick.
Yeah. It's like deja vu.
Yeah, especially.
So, speaking of the spoiler alert, you are married. You have found happiness again. So, talk to us about meeting Alex and like there's a lot here, like allowing yourself to like let Alex into this.
Yeah. So it had not quite been a year since Nick had passed away. And well, I'll start by saying this, like when it had been, I don't know, like, well, initially you have like I would get such like crippling anxiety that I could not go out in public. I mean, I for a long time. And I remember like this was kind of, right before COVID hit, like Mardi Gras time. This was so maybe like February. I was like, oh, I finally feel like I could go out like into public. And I went to a bar on the day of Mardi Gras, like St. Louis Mardi Gras, with my friend, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go out there. We didn't go to Soulard. No. Like,
you went straight into it. You drove at first.
Sharon's like, you motherfucking bad bitch.
I'm sure. No, I was thinking that. What are you doing?
She dove right on it. No, he's like a local bar, like on the day of Mardi Gras, and I was like, I'm gonna go and maybe I'll kiss a boy, or I'll, like I'm gonna drink and I'm gonna have fun, blah, blah, blah. And I got there and I was there for like 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, I have to leave. I can't do it. You do it. Yeah. And so, and then, COVID hits. And so like no one's doing anything anyways. And so, it wasn't until like it was like August. It was the following August. And I don't know if I truly was like full blown ready. But one of my co-residents was like, you gotta at least try, like, get out there, like we're going to make you a dating account. Like, I'm like, oh, what? Like, I don't know anything about these apps or anything. So she makes me a Bumble account. And then
You kids in your apps. I don't know anything about these appity apps.
new Michael technology. And she makes me start swiping. And so actually, Alex, who is my now husband, I knew him through a mutual friend. And so we knew, it was one of those things where we knew of each other, but we had never like actually interacted. And once we started dating, then we realized that we did meet like face to face we were at a wedding, and I was actually pregnant with Jack at that wedding. We like stumbled across a picture, which is so crazy. It's him.
That is wild.
Him and Nick, and then our other friend Dusty, all three of them like standing next to each other, this picture of the three of them. So, but we didn't like stumble across that picture until after me and him were already together. So I knew of him but didn't really like know him. And he comes up and I was like, oh shit. I remember texting Melanie and I was like, you didn't tell me your friend Alex was so attractive. And my like co-resident who had like made my profile on the app, she's like, oh, you're swiping on him. And so anyways, we start talking, we start dating, and then yeah, here we are. Now we're married, and
Like how
baby.
Yeah.
I know, it's been a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to think that maybe, you lost Nick and then we're thrusted into COVID. Everyone's kind of staying home. Not you and not Jamie, because you guys you girls still have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably some sense of security also there too, knowing that you both work at hospitals. And at least in the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, if you work in a hospital or if you go anywhere near a hospital, you're getting COVID. That's how it was for my mindset. I don't know if it was like safe for you, but so there had to be some comfort too to have Jamie there, to know that there's somebody else that you can be around after hours who had been exposed potentially to COVID. I'm sure that there's some scary.
No, I didn't have her at this. Oh, she didn't.
Oh no, that's right. She hadn't moved in yet. Yep.
She hadn't moved in yet. So it was just.
Wait, no. Okay. Oh my gosh. So he passed away in October of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she moved in like March or something.
No, she moved in, I guess the end of June, beginning of July. And end of June is when she moved in. Yeah.
Oh.
Filling out. He's like, and so we did a week on, a week off. At the hospital, we like moved to that model because they like a lot of our OBGYN, like in residency, a lot of it was operating actually. So there was a lot of like the labor and delivery part, but there also was a lot of operating. And so they canceled all elective cases, which most OBGYN cases are elective cases, like hysterectomy, stuff like that. So we didn't have as much work. So they wanted to limit the like exposure. So we did a week on, a week off. And so actually, it was really hard during that time. Actually, the whole year being, on my own with Jack was very difficult. But now I'm actually like really thankful for I don't know, words.
I know.
Like,
it's not thankful, but you don't want to
come across their own way. But like, I appreciate that time that I had with just me and Jack.
Totally.
Yeah.
We like grew so much as like,
I think
mother-son combo.
it's also, grief is weird because you can be happy for the space that you are in without negating the person you lost. And so I think that's gotta be especially true for you it is for me. Like when I think about my mom, God love her, but I'd lose her all over again if it got me to Diamond P. Like, and I don't mean that in a like,
Yeah.
I don't miss her. I do, but like, I would be hard pressed to choose any other path that didn't lead me to exactly where I am right now. And so I have to imagine you're also feeling that way.
Yes. And so that is one thing that is extremely hard and truly, I know I keep saying there are unique things, but truly unique to losing a spouse is this, that like you can get another one. And I guess another situation.
Yeah, you can. You go to the spouse store on that little app and you just pick yourself out.
I knew Karen wasn't gonna
Yeah, that bubble app.
I knew Karen wasn't gonna let that one go.
That was so good.
You can't
Another
one. Ayo.
Yeah, it's so true though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like another situation, like if you with a child, like you can have another child, but the thing that is hard about losing a spouse is that it's not like I can like put pictures of me and Nick all over my house. You know, it's not like I can wear like Nick's old clothes. And then also you can't help but feel so guilty. I mean, I literally to this day feel so guilty for how happy I am. And the fact that like I have this beautiful life doesn't negate, what I had with him. But I can't help but like feel so guilty for that.
Sure. I'm sure it was hard to be intimate, even especially in the beginning. You probably thought, I can only imagine maybe you felt obviously guilt, but maybe a little bit like you're cheating almost. I don't know.
So it did help that Alex knew my story because like we had this mutual friend. So he knew my story. So I didn't have to tell him everything. And so he knew going in that I
nice.
lost my husband, and he knew that I, had a toddler. And so he knew what he was like getting into, like dating me. And so that was one good thing. But it's still, it takes a very special person to get into that situation and handle it the way that he has. I mean, is more than I ever could have asked for. And just goes to show, that he was the right one for me. Because my family has a couple that we're really good friends with, and they have a similar they have a situation where the husband lost his first wife, and then he ended up getting remarried, and they didn't have any children together. They both had children, so they have this blended family, and still kept in touch with his first wife's family. Oh, wow. And his second wife, knows that whole family, and all of the kids, like her child that, has none of the DNA from him are,
from her.
Yes. From her at all, like calls them his grandparents. And so that was like such a model situation relationship. And I really was hopeful that something like that could happen to me. And it has. Yeah. All my family, Alex's family, Nick's family, they have all been so wonderful. And we all have gotten together at times. Like mine and Alex's child that we have, we called Nick's parents his grandparents.
How special.
We just we just went to the soccer game over the weekend, and the other two grandparents had already had a turn, and so it was their turn. So I'm in a situation right now that is more than I ever could have dreamed of when I went through all of that. But you help feel so guilty.
For sure.
And whenever I talk about Nick or like get sad about Nick, like I don't want anyone to think that I'm not happy or I'm not
Grateful.
grateful for what I have. And I never want Alex to think that I don't love him because I still love Nick and always will love Nick. It's a situation that's so different from other griefs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that you just kind of have to, it's not really something that you can even like talk to people about almost. And so that's always been something that obviously I still struggle with somewhat because I feel like I can't be sad because I have all of this good stuff in my life now.
It's Rashida's favorite. It's the at least. So it's like, well, at least you found somebody. Well, at least you're able to have another kid. Well, at least you had the support. Well, it's at least. And it's like, no, both things can be true.
Yes. And just because I'm like so happy right now doesn't mean that I'm still sad and still grieving. And that Nora McInerney that I mentioned before, she has like a, I don't know, I stumbled across this like video of her.
I think it was like a TED Talk, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a TED Talk. And that's like one of my favorite videos ever. And anyone that loses someone, I send it to them. And I'm like, this is something that truly helped me so much. But I love how she says, like, people who like have a baby or like, like get a promotion, like do all these great things in life. Like you don't tell them to get over that stuff. Like they have this baby and you're all excited for them. And then 5 years down the road, like they throw a birthday party for their kid and you're not like a fifth, like another birthday party. Come on, like get over it. And it's a similar kind of thing where like you're just always going to have that. And it's not that you're moving on. She says that a lot, that she doesn't like the term moving on because you're not moving on without that person. You're moving forward with them. Like they will always be a part of your life, even, if you're remarried or have another child. And like, just like, my new baby Walker, like he has none of Nick's DNA, but he has like Nick's parents as his grandparents. And so like we're still moving forward with Nick in our lives.
Yeah. And it's like you're out of tremendous heartbreak. Walker and Jack are enclosed in so much love. Like they're like, that's so many full sets of grandparents
I know
who all fight over like when they can have them. And so when I think about that, like that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's like I said, it's more than I ever could have like dreamt of. Whenever I, getting into this situation, when everything happened, like I never would have pictured that my life is what it is right now.
I'm so happy for you. I'm
so happy. How do you think, as Jack gets older, you will incorporate more of Nick? Not that you're not, but like, how will you start to have these conversations with Jack? Have you thought about that?
I mean, first, like things that we do now, we tell stories about him all the time. We say what he does that like your daddy used to do that. or like, you look just like your daddy, like blah blah blah. So we do some of that now. Um, I think it's one thing that is like very helpful is that like Nick's family is still like so
Very much.
present. Yes, so present in our lives, and so they're very good at keeping his name out there and stories of him, and they have way more pictures and stuff than we do of him here. But I do show him pictures like on my phone and stuff like that. But I think we'll probably he's kind of now at the age where we can start having more of a conversation. And it kind of wasn't until Walker was born, and I think that he started like hearing us call Alex daddy for Walker, that it maybe got a little more confusing. Because he did always like associate Alex like as his dad. I think now is when he's old enough to where we will kind of start having to have that conversation. Honestly, I don't know how I'm gonna go about doing it, but I have always said like, you have a daddy here and a daddy in heaven. Like, you have two daddies, and like you
can't have a surplus of love. Like, so like he can't be overloved, and so I think that's perfect to be. Like you have both. Like like you have two dads, because for all intents and purposes, what, it did not actually like dawn on me that this would be the moment, like Alex being Walker's dad and you referring to Alex now as dad. Because I feel like for a long time you were very careful not to, like very careful to, like, Alex's nickname, Jack called him Boo Boo.
He calls him Boo Boo still.
Yes. And so like I feel like you were very careful to be like, yep, this is Boo Boo and I'm Mom. And then it didn't even dawn on me the murkiness now, right? Like that puts you on a whole nother grief journey too.
You have to, like,
and that really been like within the past year, because Alex and I got married a little over a year ago, and so that's when it kind of started a little bit, and also like when I think him starting to go to daycare did it a little bit, because like everyone at daycare, like they have a mommy and a daddy, and they talk about like mommy and daddy.
Bring in a picture of your family.
Yes.
That's when he started to associate it. And so yes, that's something that stay tuned. We're still working.
We'll come back around, but I do think that it is. The loss is the negative, the love is not. And so I do think you can. It doesn't have to be like it is. I know that it's going to be a hard conversation for you to have. But I don't think that it has to be as scary, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because like in the end, like Jack benefits.
Right.
And he got an extra set of grandparents. Two cousins he loves.
So it's more love.
Exactly. And kids have such a unique, special, amazing way of making sure to incorporate your Nick and your mom Rashida and my mom, about like anytime my daughter sees a butterfly or a feather or a penny or whatever. Of course, I taught her all that, but she's like, hey, that's Nana, or just it's like they have such a way of really incorporating and making their memory, keeping their memory alive.
Yes.
They're really special.
The kids actually make it less awkward than the adults do.
I do.
Like Dom, and there's been a couple times, again, because life is weird. There's been a couple times, because I talk about my mom a lot. Like, obviously, my whole fucking podcast dedicated to that. But I talk about my mom a lot, and I do bring her up in everyday conversation so that it feels like she's always kind of a part of this. And the older, so Parker has like my mom's personality to a T. And so that's been an interesting grief journey for me to like see this little version of my mom walking around and like not being able to talk to her about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also like it, having as they get older and they start to have their own personalities and like their own likes and dislikes. And like I find reasons to bring my mom up when their dislikes or something match my mom's. So like Dom loves, I think I might have talked about this on here. Dom loves the fucking banana Laffy Taffies. Who the fuck loves banana Laffy Taffies?
Yeah.
Nobody.
No one.
Yeah, no one. And so like my mom was obsessed with them, like would go out of her way to get like the long rope ones and blah, blah, blah. And like now Dom, yes. And now like Dom's like rooting through candy, see if he can get the banana Laffy Taffy. And like those moments I am like, you know who else likes banana Laffy Taffy? And now Dom will be like, my angel grandma. What?
Oh.
So I don't have to, and it might be that way, Meg. Like you never have to have a full, like I never had to like sit down and be like, okay, Dom. I think because I had been talking about her all the time anyways, I never had to like sit down and be like, okay, so my mom died when mom was a kid. Like,
Yeah.
he thinks that she's like in the sky and that he can take a rocket ship to get her.
I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay, eventually he'll figure it out on his own, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Right. Why?
So I don't have to make it a thing because we talk about her all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking would maybe be your situation. I think it's a little bit different. But they're really great about keeping the memory alive.
Yeah, we do try to talk about him, you know, all the time, and so that he knows stories about him and stuff like that.
Yeah. Similarities too.
So what is the thing you miss most about Nick?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, well, I don't know if this is like the thing I miss most, but it is one thing that I don't have with Alex, because my husband now, Alex, is a very healthy. He's like an ultra marathoner.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah. So he's very healthy, and like he'll still, you know, he has a sweet tooth and stuff like that. But like me and Nick would just like, we were in college, okay, so we would just go out to the bars, like get hammered, and then we would just like pig the F out.
Oh yeah.
On like, oh my gosh, the junk food, that like the fried foods and like we would just go to town. And like and some nights we would just like stay in and like go to town on some like super unhealthy food. And like we used to like say, you want to have fat kid night, and like fat kids unite. So we would just like house some. So I like miss those nights. Because I don't know if I could ever convince Alex to do that with me. Although one time he did get Taco Bell with me. Late night Taco Bell.
Really living it up.
Yeah.
I know.
Meg, if you could, what would you say to another mama who has just lost their spouse?
Oh man. There's like, it's what you want to say is that like it won't always hurt this bad, and that it will like, because you don't want to be like, you're gonna be happy again, like it will happen, like you'll be happy again, and like look at me, look at my that's like,
Look at me.
Yeah. You can be happy too. Just go to the spouse store.
yeah, sign up for Bumble.
Yeah.
No,
After us.
yeah, I would just want to say that like it's not always going to hurt this bad, that it will be like, I know you've like referred to this, the waves of grief. Like, it's really hard initially, and then it'll, slowly, little bit by little bit, it gets easier, and it's will kind of scab over a little bit. Like, the wound won't always feel so fresh, but then, that scab could open up from time to time, and like feel fresh again. And I'd also want to tell them that, I do always tell people the resources that I use, and initially you're probably not ready for those right at the beginning, but like I always tell them there were some books that like really, really helped me a lot. They kind of like were able to, there's actually, Nora McInerney truly was like wonderful. Her book, Hot Young Widows Club, was absolutely outstanding. Really it was specifically about like losing a spouse, but really could apply to someone who lost, for any sort of loss. But so I always give people like the resources like those, and then the podcasts I listen to and stuff that helped me, but tell them that initially, you probably won't be ready for those. And like right at the beginning, like you just kind of have to get through that, huge, like toll that the loss is going to take on you initially. And then I do always try to like tell people, or I say that like I've done this before. No, I would want to like tell them that, and this wouldn't be something I tell them eventually, but like later on, like if you do, find someone else, again, you're not moving on and just like forgetting everything that happened with your first spouse. Like, you are moving forward with them still in your life, but moving forward and, making new memories and new happy moments. And like, it is okay. Another thing is, I would want to tell them, like, once they get to, a certain point, it is okay to be happy again, because you do feel so guilty, and you don't want people to like look at you and be like, what, she got married again? Like, it's so soon. And what, she's having a baby again? Like, it's so soon. And isn't she sad that she, lost that person? Tell them that, if someone thinks that, first off, like, they have no idea what you've been through. There's no manual for how to go through this, and everyone's on their own timeline. So if, for me, like, I was ready, and that was a whole nother thing that I didn't really get into about like my in-laws feeling that was too soon. And so that was actually like, we like secretly dated for a while before I told them, and then that was a struggle initially too.
Totally.
Sure.
But there's no manual, there's no specific timeline. Like, everyone just has to like work through things at their own pace, and that's fine. You're allowed to do that.
Yep. It's your life.
Yes.
Do it.
Your life, your grief. And another thing, which you guys always say, and I love this, is feel your feels. Feel your freaking feels. And I love that you say that, because it's so true. And I really did try to do that. And I think it's because I had you, Rashida. And I knew like how things went for you, that things hit you like years down the road. I didn't want that. And it's still, I may have a situation like that, but I went into it and I was like, I am going to feel everything now. I want to
work through this
now. I want to work through this right now, because I want to be there for my son and be present for my son. So,
oh yeah,
while it might be horrible right now, like I want to work through it so that I can come out better. And I really, I I am a different person than I was before I lost Nick, but in a, in a good way, so something like, there's been a lot of good things that have come out of this horrible thing, but I do feel like I've grown so much, and like the person that I became, who Alex fell in love with, that is because I lost Nick. And
Sarah.
There's so much good that can come out of a terrible thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Meg. I tell you what, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
I'm so fucking proud of you.
And I'm
So
proud of
fucking
you.
I'm not proud of how much I cried, but I was crazy.
No, you felt your feels. And yeah, everybody had her. Listen, we just bought you some extra good time with your kids, your spouse, and Alex. So
Yes.
Girls showing you real life.
yeah.
Real life.
Yeah.
How you feel your feels.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Meg, like I said, I'm so fucking proud of you. To have watched you, like you are a different person. And I do also agree with you, for the better. I feel, not that anything was wrong with you before. But I
paid her to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God somebody.
Getting to watch you. Yeah. I know. Damn it. Getting to watch you come out of this, and come out of this isn't the right words, because it's grief, and we know that like it's a journey and you're always gonna kind of be on it, but seeing you like getting to hold Walker felt to me like a moment of like, my girl did it. Like my girl pulled herself from the darkest of darks, and out of it we got the most delicious little Berber.
Yep.
And yeah, Alex,
He's fucking cute.
Yeah. Actually, more than that, we got Alex's sisters, because I really like them.
Oh,
yes. And I really like Alex's mom.
yeah.
Oh.
Literally amazing.
Yes.
Oh.
Meg, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know
for having me.
Yeah, I know it's so difficult to share something so personal, but boy, you're gonna help so many people.
Well, ever since you guys started this thing, I have been like, I have to get on there. I have to get on there because, again, like, the word of the podcast is unique, because I've said it like a million times, but I just don't, this is like an area that
we hadn't done yet.
And for good reason, because it doesn't happen a lot, thankfully. And so I felt like it was, an area that needed to be covered, and I'm glad that I could do that for you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
All right, gals, thanks so much for listening to the Grieving Mamas Club podcast. When times get tough, just remember, you're a badass bee and you got this, mama.